a lot of people have baggage about the word vision. People are visionaries, and executives have vision. This is a necessary trait. And it gets a lot of grief because it calls to mind people who just don't get a lot done, or maybe who talk very prettily, but never roll up their sleeves. And I thought it would be useful and fun to talk about vision. What does it look like? What are some of the what is some of the baggage that we have about the term? What does it look like in a healthy way? Is there value in it?
Okay.
So, Maha, what are some of the associations you have when someone uses the word vision in a corporate sense? Good or bad?
Mixed, I would say. It's kind of a so-so for me. On one hand, I think people confuse the word vision with long-term planning.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, they also sometimes don't realize that for you to reach a certain vision or a certain future, that you need to take a lot of risks and you need to have successful small wins.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, when they hear vision, think someone who does daydreaming, who thinks, oh, wouldn't it be awesome if everybody loved me and I was flying all over the place and staying in Mallorca, and like that's their vision. Mm-hmm. And it's not really a very interesting or useful activity.
Nope. Unless it's on paper.
Well, sure. But do you have any of that association?
I would say that from one organization to the next, it could be different. I had definitely associated people with that sort of behavior per se, but I haven't really associated it to vision and being a visionary. But is that maybe something that we need to talk about?
Yeah, probably. I think a lot of the people who, and this kind of crosses over to entrepreneurs. I remember an SNL skit where someone was saying, like it was a game show, what have you done with your life? And some guy is saying, I'm a serial entrepreneur. And when confronted with what he has done with his life, he hasn't done anything. Serial entrepreneur is just his code word for unemployed. And I think some of that baggage of a visionary means someone who just doesn't get anything done.
So a person full of ideas, but no process or no way of putting it on paper, no process or no way of following through.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're just exploring the baggage. The other thing.
Well, I'm exploring the baggage because this reminds me of what in our last session with Sean, which was in our last episode, where Sean has discussed his baggage, interestingly enough, the vision, and how vision for him was just such an icky word because it just meant nothing. Right. What about another example here too, which is Elon Musk's little tube under the ground?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we could talk for hours on Elon. He's got a lot of ideas, and the interesting thing about Elon is he has actually executed on some of them. Not all of them. He has more ideas, but like the Starlink, that's going well. The space program, man, putting everybody else in the world who does space to shame and inspiring those who are not ashamed. Really great execution there. So somehow he's able to, at least for some of his projects, cross that. You know, he has this vision of what it could be, and he knows or makes sure like all the steps to get there happen.
So that then brings me to the question of what is vision then? Is it an approach or is it a goal? What is it exactly?
Great question. I think
Great segue.
this great segue. Language is descriptive and people mean different things by different words. I think for me, in its healthiest sense, vision is having the capacity to create goals or create, imagine a future that is different from today. I mean, at its basis, you're imagining a different reality. And I think the missing part is you have to have like concrete goals, achievable goals, smart goals, whatever, good goals to get there. And you have to have a reasonable plan to get there. And you have to have you have to be able to solve chicken and egg problems to get there.
You have to execute.
You have to execute. You have to be able to solve problems. You have to have the resources to get there. And I think without all that, the vision is mostly synonymous with the daydream.
That's also interesting to kind of bring up, right? Because what is a visionary in comparison to someone like a futurist?
Yeah. I remember futurist is another great example of, these weird people that are out of touch. I remember like there's this quote from some Nobel economics prize winner that says the internet is a fad and it's going to transform business about as much as the fax machine. And he was dead wrong. Like his vision for the future, which was incorrect. David Bowie got it. Like there's this tremendous interview of him in like the late 90s saying, buckle your seatbelts. This is going to change entire societies and how we relate to each other. It's going to be a huge deal. And I mean, he's a
smart guy,
very colorful character.
But he was a smart guy in all honesty as well. So credit to him.
I had a mentor who kind of snuck visioning in, like best practices of visioning in. He taught me how to be a project manager, and one of his documents that he always started with, he called it a solution design, and other people call it like a functional spec because it's not a unique idea. But before you build anything, you decide, what does the future state look like? And you have to decide how it all works. You have to define your vision. You have to, and sometimes you have to, usually in a company, you have to do that with other people. It's a collaborative vision.
Exactly.
So part of success in visioning is being specific enough and making decisions well enough to actually execute on.
And it sounds to me like, especially when you talk about that collaborative piece, having those different opinions and having those different visions clash into one allows you or gives you the opportunity to formulate a, let's just say, executionable vision or executionable product or executionable future. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. And I think to that point, there's another great sub idea, which is once you have this future state, the world is full of people who want to design and build utopia.
Yes.
That is a waste of time. And it always has been. Like this world is a broken world. We are not going to get to utopia in one big step.
So if you're an engineer out there, you're useless.
Yep. Sorry, guys. You're not going to do it. The way is continuous improvement. You think, what is the next right step towards good? Maybe you have a vision. Maybe it's a collaborative vision. You have ideally written it down, so you're not going to argue about it again next week. What the vision is, what the future state is, and now comes how are you going to get there? And some people, and this gets exactly to your question about approach and goals. I think the steps to get there are just a plan. And the plan's going to change if your vision is any substantial amount of work. And you have to create a resilient approach with stepping stones to get there.
Okay.
And you can't jump there all in one go. You should be a good executor will always be thinking, what's my next right step? Given that this is my current state, what's my next hop? Reasonable, doable hop to get to where I want to go.
And I ask you then a question here when it comes to the project management side of this, and even the executing for vision side. If you have a vision, let's say the vision has been studied, you have kind of an accurate, let's say, guesstimate on when you're going to deliver, wouldn't it be something that a project manager would usually work up to? Yes, it's not accurate, but that doesn't mean that you could be, for example, 13 months over time, etc. So it sounds to me like that vision, or that vision turns into almost like a goal within that plan. And a good project manager actually tries their best to achieve said plan, hopefully without detrimenting any other elements of the project.
Yes.
So setting smart goals.
Yeah. And I mean, you're going to do the best you can with your roadmap, and you're going to use your best judgment, but some of it will fail because unexpected things happening.
Okay.
Unexpected things happen. And the thing to remember is the timing is usually secondary to the order of hops. Often there's a disconnect between the people that create the plan and the people who execute the plan.
Okay.
And many project managers know this. And the biggest disconnect is usually in the timeline. The people creating the plan, they know the steps, the most efficient way, the most effective way of getting to the end state they want. There is less confidence in how much effort, how long it's going to take to get there. And that's why you see senior managers, senior leaders, when things are over budget, things are over time, over schedule, they kind of roll with it. Because it's still the next thing to do is just to do the plan, even though it has taken longer than it has so far.
I think that's a really good kind of segue for a future episode, which is when to know to kill a plan and when to know to kill a vision.
Yes, that's a really good question. I have one of the problems that I think comes up with visions, especially like we were talking about designing and building utopias, is people visioning too far out. What are, Maha, in your experience, what are some problems that happen when people try to vision like too big of a change that'll take too long from where they are today?
I think that in that case, there are kind of the human factors and there are the cost factors. The human factors is that it's going to be harder for you to bring people along with you, especially those who execute. Those who execute usually have a shorter, let's say, sight when it comes to vision. And if they cannot see the roadmap, if they cannot envision the roadmap with you, it's going to be really hard for them to not only execute, but to come along with you. So sometimes that tremendous frustration of not communicating the vision well or not making it tangible enough and reachable enough means that you frustrate the people around you, and you might kill a project even before it actually fruitions due to that. The other side is cost. If you end up promising something for cheap and the costs just keep exploding and exploding, and then hopefully the vision is good, but if the vision is not even that great, which is actually the case with vision, right? There was the example of the Berlin airport that took 15 years additional to build, and cost billions and billions of dollars, and they ended up having a really bad sewage system, and ended up actually having so many things go wrong with it, that obviously the frustration with the people who had quote unquote a vision, and everything else just made it even worse.
So sometimes a vision does not pan out. I think we've all seen enough product launches that just died, or even just smaller visions, an ad person's vision for a Pepsi ad gets widely panned, and everybody loves to make fun of it and hate it, and everything goes wrong. So what do you do in that case where it seems like maybe you didn't have enough information, or for whatever reason your vision was bad? You didn't think about the sewage in your airport well enough. And what do you do there?
So this is interesting, because to me, if you have a vision, you need, and we talked about it, you need that kind of step-by-step, small wins sort of mentality for you to achieve a bigger goal or a bigger vision. And it sounds to me like continuous improvement is such a big thing that visionaries might even sometimes miss, where for you to reach said vision, you need to understand that the initial vision that you had may not be the end result either, because you need to continuously adjust and continuously improve to achieve something, right?
Yeah. I think often people, when they're defining this future state, like, whoa, what if it worked like this? They have some assumptions or analysis or interpretations about provided value. They think if it worked this way, it's going to provide this value. And sometimes those are not met. You don't end up providing the value. It didn't work out the way you thought. And so what you do then is going to depend a lot on, well, what value were you trying to deliver? And with that in mind, one thing I didn't talk about with solution designs or functional specs is they should have this is the value we expect to get. This is why this is going to be helpful. And so you can keep
the value, but not the vessel.
Switching the how. You can tweak the vision, knowing your North Star, your guiding principles of we're trying to improve customer experience, or we're trying to whatever end result you're trying to deliver.
And I like that, because it sounds to me like vision in this case is about the value itself versus the vessel, i.e. So could you say that metrics are actually almost like the guardrails of vision in this case? They help direct the vision into a certain kind of direction. And so when you sway a little bit, it helps kind of put you back on track even.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, or we've kind of got like vision and goals and a roadmap to get to the vision. I think metrics are the guardrails on your goals. It makes your guardrail or your goals real, measurable.
Measurable. That's a really good one to use.
And SMART goals. But choosing good metrics is a hard science, a hard art, and
we've been talking about during this whole podcast, actually.
Yes, we'll get there. So I think as much baggage as we have around the word vision, and associated with entrepreneurs and associated with people who never get anything done, I think the principle has value, and people who can clearly imagine a future state, that's a skill. And but know that it's only going to be a helpful, valuable skill if you can also, or somehow resource the other skills of being very clear about the goals it's trying to deliver, how you're going to measure them, and
The realities.
plan and execute a path to that vision. Otherwise, I think the baggage is warranted.
We take then the example of the vision of driverless cars, for example, and start to dissect that within what we've just kind of talked about even. How would you talk about vision? How would you talk about continuous improvement within that vision? The guardrails, in this case, the actual metrics, and even what made some companies fail and exit, and some companies stay, and why?
So a lot of people love to hate Google, and there's a lot of things wrong with them. But one of the things that gives me the most trust in them as an organization is how they've been approaching driverless cars. And they have been researching and executing on this vision for the longest time. Now, they have learned so much, and they have discovered new barriers to success in driverless cars.
Yes.
They've got a public opinion barrier because, like, ostensibly, so many people die from car accidents. Methed out or sleep deprived truck drivers. You have drunk people. You have distracted people. You have teenagers and texting people, and just
people dying on the wheel.
People zoning. Yeah, so many people die, and it's become boring to everybody. But because driverless cars are new, even if they cut the rate of accidents by 90%, they're still going to have a PR issue with the 10%. So even if it's a net improvement, there's still a barrier to rolling them out. And I think the vision they had of, hey, computers are now good enough to do this better than people, that's a good vision. But they're tweaking their approach. It's taking longer. Now Google's still doing it. And arguably one of the points of their vision that they could have been better at is they bit off too much. They thought of it as a computational exercise, and they went first with taxis. It would have been more easier for them to start with something like pizza delivery, and some of the most successful earlier to market
Rambling.
I'm getting there. Companies that are succeeding in monetizing this market are in that market, that there's no people inside, so the computer has full autonomy to just crash the thing instead of knocking over an old lady. Way smaller problems. So did Google bite off too much? Was their vision too big? Yeah, maybe. But I like their approach.
I actually kind of have a different argument too. I do like their approach because I think what Google has done better than a lot of companies that exited is that they continuously readjusted their vision. They still want to achieve some form of driverless vehicle. It's just that the actual mode of delivering that vision, delivering that value is continuously changing. So on one hand, for example, they discovered that, well, actually, not only is people's opinions a problem in this case, and hindrance, but people in themselves are so unpredictable that even if the computer could predict everything, it may not be the safest thing. So I actually, for example, liked the approach of having dedicated lanes for a lot of these autonomous vehicles, including autonomous trucks, where there could be some sort of reduction in any decision making that the computer has to do, or any sort of other blockages that they actually have, because this is them delivering on a promise or delivering on a vision while tweaking it continuously, even if it takes longer, tweaking it continuously until they could achieve some functional executable form of it. And I really like that, actually.
They're doing well.
So Dylan, sounds like there are a lot of challenges to vision, not just in regards to execution, getting people along, managing the expectations of those who you bring with you, i.e. employees or even the public. But even when it comes to setting those guardrails and those metrics that will help you achieve the value of the vision and not the form of it or the shape of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that last example really did wrap it up really nicely. So thank you, Dylan, for the conversation today. I think we have a lot to think about, and I really do appreciate the element of maybe we can actually have another go at this when it comes to how to kill a project as well.
Sounds good.
But otherwise, Dylan, see, that wasn't too hard. And we're thinking more and more.